Go ahead and have a seat, everyone. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to be here today. Just take a second to get organized here. Excuse me. So if we can just take a moment to introduce ourselves. My name is Alyssa Kadish. I'm currently a justice on the Nevada Supreme Court. I'm no longer Chief Justice. I was Chief last year. That's the little cross out you see on here. But I'm a justice now. But more importantly, for your purposes today, I love the We the People program. I've literally been judging We the People since 1989. I love it. It's one of the few things that'll get me up early on a Saturday morning because this fires me up and makes me excited about our future. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jill Tolles. I'm the Executive Director of the Kenny Glynn Center for Policy Priorities, our nonpartisan policy research center for the state. Before that, I served 3 terms in the Nevada Assembly, and most importantly, I'm a proud We the People mom. Both my daughters completed the program.
I'm James Phoenix, retired Reno police officer, served in the Marine Corps, and also with the Nevada Army National Guard, and the former chairman of the paramedic IHI, and currently a trustee for WCSD, and I'm happy to be here today.
We are Unit 6 from Edward C. Reed High School. My name is Eileen.
My name is Madison Honig.
My name is Aiden Martinez.
My name is Carolyn Medina. My name is Miley Grange.
Wonderful. Well, so as you know, our question for today is as follows. In the Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln declared that 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Why do you think Lincoln believes 1776 to be the start of a new nation instead of 1788? When do you believe the nation officially began? What qualifies a separate region or group as a distinct sovereign nation? Are the ideals set forth in the Declaration of Independence still shaping American law and policy today? Should they be legally enforceable? Please begin.
President Lincoln argued that America's true beginning was in 1776, not 1788, because he believed a perpetual union existed through a social contract before the Constitution. In his first inaugural address, he said the Articles of Association of 1774 began this process, and the Declaration of Independence matured and continued it. The Articles of Confederation declared a perpetual union in 1778, and the Constitution sought to create a more perfect union in 1788.
In the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln honored Civil War soldiers by linking their sacrifices to the ideals of liberty and equality first declared in the Revolution. He consistently turned to the Declaration of Independence as the nation's moral foundation. In his 1854 Kansas-Nebraska Act speech, he said, "The spirit of 76 and the spirit of slavery are antagonistic," showing he viewed freedom and equality as the core of America's identity. While the Constitution preserved these ideals, Lincoln believed the nation's real birth came with the Declaration's promise that all men are created equal.
The colonies first acted as a united nation through the First and Second Continental Congresses from 1774 to 1775. Representatives challenged British authority, coordinated resistance, and established the Continental Army under George Washington.
The Declaration states, "We, the representatives of the United States of America, by authority of the good people of these colonies, declare that these colonies are free and independent states." This asserted a new social contract grounded in the natural right of revolution.
Sovereignty involves more than geography. It requires consent, laws, and the ability to self-govern. John Locke said, "The consenting of free people into civil society is the only lawful government in the world."
By winning the Revolutionary War, the United States proved it could defend its territory against one of the world's strongest empires. The consent process established in 1776 was strengthened through the ratification of the Constitution in 1787 and 1788. Constitutional scholar Akhil Reed Amar said the adoption of the Constitution was the most participatory, majoritarian, and populist event the Earth had ever seen.
Today, the UN's 193 member states are considered sovereign, though the strength of consent varies. When ISIS took over parts of Syria and Iraq, its proclaimed Islamic State was not legitimate.
Locke wrote in 1690 that conquerors' swords often cut up governments by the roots, but the world is too well instructed to allow of this way dissolving and establishing governments.
The ideals of the Declaration continue shaping American law and policy. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 still guides us by outlining discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. In Bostock v. Clayton County, 2020, the Supreme Court ruled that Title VII's protection against discrimination on sex includes sexual orientation.
The Right to Revolution appeared in the Black Lives Matter movement protesting systematic racism, discrimination, and police brutality. Consent of the governed shapes debates on voter ID laws, mail-in ballots, and restoring voting rights for ex-felons.
In Cotting v. Goddard, the Supreme Court said that although the Declaration is not organic law, the Constitution should be read in its spirit. The Declaration's ideals are enforceable through the 14th Amendment, which protects equality in life, liberty, and property from state infringement, as well as amendments such as the 19th and 26th, which expanded suffrage and strengthened consent of the governed. The Declaration rejects arbitrary rule. Presidents Obama, Biden, and Trump have all lost court cases involving perceived executive overreach.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we talk about the Declaration of Independence and talking about all men are created equal and how those principles still carry forward today, and we look to those principles. But I think it's fair to say the writers of the Declaration had a little different idea about who was equal when they said that. Do you think that that is appropriate for us to interpret the Declaration and or to change who we think is included within it? In other words, I think it's fair to say they wouldn't, when they said all men are created equal, they weren't necessarily including everyone other than white male landholders. Do you think it's appropriate to interpret it in a different way now than they thought about it then?
It is appropriate to conclude that we can interpret the Declaration and the Constitution differently today. All men are created equal can refer to women, such as the 19th Amendment gave voting rights to women, and this exclusively expanded the equality in our country today.
Adding on to what my colleague is saying, in the case Ledbetter v. Goodyear Tire, it is mentioning how Ledbetter filed a sex discrimination case with the Supreme Court because she was receiving significantly less in her paychecks than her male colleagues, although she was doing the same work as her male colleagues. The Supreme Court ended up ruling with Goodyear because she filed too late. Although President Obama overturned this case with the Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. This is a solution, although it is just a stepping stone in today that there are still issues with discrimination and that we are not all seen as equal.
It's undeniable that the framers had a different vision when they wrote the Declaration. But today, John Stuart Mill, a philosopher, he said on liberty that as younger generations arise, they do not uphold the beliefs of the older generations. The Declaration was not written with our best interests in mind. However, we should still read its spirit. Undeniably, it was a stepping stone for a social contract that we have today. And like in Cotting v. Goddard, that the Declaration should be the spirit of the law. We follow their ideals on equality, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and we follow it today because we want to interpret this to include modern democracy.
In the Declaration of Independence, in one of the grievances, they refer to the Native Americans as savages, and we should not interpret that today in our society.
So it's clear that you've taken a strong stance in agreement with Abraham Lincoln, and a healthy process in debate is to fully understand the other side. Could you explain what the other side might say if they were to make the strong stance that the beginning of the nation is 1788 with the Constitution?
In 1788, when the Constitution was ratified, we created a new social contract within the people. And we can see this in the preamble of the Constitution where it says, "We the people." And also in Article 6, Clause 2, we see that it says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land.
There are many interpretations about when the true beginning of the nation was. We can see after the Revolutionary War in 1775 to 1783, America was just seen as 13 British colonies along the Atlantic Ocean, and we wanted no taxation without representation. So we fought for our rights, and this is often seen as the war that created the United States.
I can see why people would believe 1788 was a true beginning of our nation. Prior to that, we had the 1783 Treaty of Paris, where Britain, this ended the American Revolution, and Britain recognized the United States' new external sovereignty. Following this, we created our social contract that we follow today. But I don't believe that it's more a defined nation in our borders and our people. The Declaration was our true stepping stone to leaving colonialism and having our own self-government.
Alrighty, so in the questionnaire, what qualifies a separate region or group as a distinct sovereign nation? How does that apply to Native Americans today?
Native Americans have their own individual sovereignty, or more so internal sovereignty. In the US, although they have a long history, such as the Trail of Tears, with having struggle coexisting in the land that they are native to, that we have unfortunately colonized and taken over, but although there have been proposed agreements, and today, I like how Native Americans, although they have reservations, they still have internal sovereignty. For example, in California, gambling is illegal, but reservations have the internal sovereignty to set up casinos because they are not a part of the state. They are not under the state's rule and legislature. They still vote as a democracy.
Why was it necessary for our country? Do you think it was necessary, and why, that we adopted the Constitution that came into effect in 1788? Why did we need to do that, or did we need to?
We needed the Constitution to establish a social contract that John Locke has come up with the concept of. This social contract, we are sacrificing some of our rights for overall protection.
Previously, we had seen the United States under the jurisdiction of the Articles of Association and the Articles of Confederation, both which did not work for the United States citizens and our own government, as we saw that this created too many differences between the state, not creating a perfect union. So I believe it was necessary that we gained the Constitution as a way to federally enforce ideas and laws across all the nation properly.
Exactly. Under the Articles of Confederation, there was way too much state power. And following Shays' Rebellion, where farmers were arguing that there was no way for federal income and tax to be spread across naturally and equally across the country. We needed a better union, a more perfect union, an actual law, a legislature that allowed federal power to still be granted so that there wasn't issues between states and their own sovereignty.
So you pointed to tremendous philosophical and historic evidence behind the birth of this nation, the social contract. You also talked about amendments. Can you share with us some critical court cases that codified into law or interpretation of those principles?
Looking at the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, we see Minor v. Happersett, where Minor believed that under the 14th Amendment, which is all equal protection, that she deserved the right to vote, although this was left up to the states under Article 1, Section 4.
The case Dred Scott v. Sanford marked that Black people in the U.S. either enslaved or freed were not citizens no matter how you put it. This was undeniably unfair and was detrimental to our ideal of equality across America. This ended up being overturned by the amendments to the 13th, which abolished slavery, the 14th, which allowed the naturalization process and gave citizenship to those born here, which is a stepping stone to voting, and the 15th, which denied the denial of voting based on race.
We see with the court case of Gideon v. Wainwright, my apologies, with Betts v. Brady, that we had previously given United States citizens the accessibility to an attorney, not the right. But that was later overturned with Gideon v. Wainwright, where we had forced states to comply and give all citizens the right to an attorney, along with an impartial jury for civic and criminal cases, which are very important in the court of law.
Following the 1970 Voting Rights Acts, there was lowering the federal voting age to 18. Oregon challenged this. In the case Oregon v. Mitchell, Oregon tried to argue that this should be left to the states under Article in Section 4, time, place, and manner. This did go into effect. The Supreme Court did side with Oregon. However, this let election officials in each state confused. They had two separate lists for who was 18, who wasn't, if they even allowed it. So this ended up in the fastest ratification process of the amendment history, the 26th Amendment, which allowed 18-year-olds to vote anyways.
With the overturning of Roe v. Wade by Dobbs v. Jackson, we see that it was overturned through the 10th Amendment and leaving it up to the states to decide who gets where the abortions are.
Okay. So we also have, we were talking about sovereignty of Native American tribes, but we also have, state versus federal government. How do you feel about that? Do you think that Nevada should have to follow federal laws instead of doing our own thing?
I believe that it's extremely important to have state laws and also federal laws. Federal laws protect the overall country and what they see is best for us all, whereas state sees it on more of a personal level, what's going on here and what can benefit the state as its own.
States are in all laboratories for democracy. Whatever the federal government does not pass, the states are left up. They are left powers under the 10th Amendment to set up their own state legislature and try out different regulations that would not perhaps pass federally. For example, the Equal Rights Amendment, the 27th, did not end up passing in Congress. But Nevada has their own version of the Equal Rights Amendment that we proposed and we made in our state.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing from all of you, and you've all clearly worked very hard and you have your own thoughts about this. And like, my favorite part of the We the People is not just to say what happened in court cases and in the amendments, but to get your opinions about that. Do you agree or disagree? And that's really, shows that you've thought about these issues. So I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed that all of you really participated in the follow-up questioning, which is hard because it's a pretty broad topic about Declaration versus Constitution, and there could be questions in a lot of different areas that could go a lot of different directions. So it's hard to know everything, and you did a nice job of responding to our questions. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. How do you feel? Take a deep breath. Good, good. Well, it's nice to see you smile. It's nice to see your shoulders all drop. And you came out very strong. It was extremely clear that you agree with Abraham Lincoln, but not just 1776. You did a phenomenal job of painting the entire picture of everything that surrounded that before and after to make your argument as to why that was the birth of the nation. You also pointed to not just historic events, but also the philosophies behind them that shaped our nation and where we were considered sovereign by outside foreign entities as well as part of the definition. And so I would have liked to hear a little bit more analysis of the counter arguments, because that makes you a good debater. When you could, and this comes from my background as a debater myself, that we were a parliamentary debater, we had to learn all the arguments on all sides, and we were given just a note card as we walked up to the podium, okay, take this side. So that helps to strengthen your understanding, but boy, did you really show that you were well-resourced and had good evidence behind the position that you took. And so, well done. I think working in more succinct explanations of court case studies and analysis would strengthen that to bring it into modern times. You're very, very strong in history, and then bringing it into the modern times would help even more.
Just for the Native American perspective, you know, just kind of looking at what it might have been like for them, you know, as this was all unraveling. What was their role in all this? What were the things that happened to them? Again, what laws are there that help you articulate and understand that a little bit clearer so that all of you can contribute to that particular topic. I also like what we discussed earlier was that, I think it was called a pivot, is that I think it was?
Mhm.
So you may not know everything about that, but someone is ready to take up and jump in and add caveat on top of all of that. So you kind of really compound that responding and kind of triggers all those thoughts and memories that you got in all your studies. So very well done. Thank you very much. All right, good job. Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Read later.
Thank you so much. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Nice job, of course.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Hello.
Good to see you, not sleeping in an airplane.
You were joking about when you were coming our way. We were talking about, oh God.